Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, where men go from good to great in their life and love. Now more than ever, our world needs strong, courageous, and compassionate men, because we believe that when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. Now, this movement is called Dad Nation, but ultimately this is for the wives, the children, and the generations to come, because we also believe that every wife and child deserves a father who is pursuing greatness. I am your host, Mitchell Osman, and I am so grateful and I'm humbled that you've chosen to spend your most precious resource, which is your time, with me today. Listen, today we've got another incredible episode for you, so let's get into it. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast. Today, we have Mark Holman here today. I'm going to read out his bio just so you get a bit of an understanding of who he is. And he's going to tell us a little bit about his own story and kind of what got him into this industry. But Mark Holman is the CEO of Mark Holman Health and has been working in the holistic health industry for the past over 4 years. Mark has always had a passion for optimal health and performance since being an athlete for the majority of his life. He now uses his gifts to coach men to break the invisible chains that are holding them back, which include low testosterone, poor nutrition, limiting beliefs, and lack of self-esteem, amongst a whole host of other things. And we're going to put all of his information at the end of the episode so you can contact him, because I know there's going to be some things that he's going to talk about today that's going to make you want to connect with him. So, hey, welcome to the show, Mark. Thanks so much for being here, man.
Yeah, man, I'm super stoked to be here and dive in.
Cool. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit more about like where are you from, all that kind of stuff. And then also, what made you get into specifically testosterone? I'd be interested to hear that.
Yeah. All right, I'll dive in. So I'll start, like I said in the bio, like I've been an athlete my whole life, so been into the whole nutrition, performance, and all of those things. But really, where my journey kind of takes a turn is probably like 25, 26 years old. I had gone to school for environmental engineering, gone down the path of what my parents had done, what my dad was telling me to do, go to school, get a good job, get good grades, contribute to your 401k, that whole vibe. But it just wasn't for me. When I was probably like 26, 27, started to ask these questions about like, who am I? What do I really want? And that just led me down the path of self-improvement, personal growth, which ultimately led me to fitness. So fitness was where it all started. I was hating, every aspect of my life, but this was like my solitude where I could just work on myself and improve. And that, like it does for a lot of people, it gets you into mindset, gets you into like emotional work, and then also like spiritual awakening. So I definitely experienced all of that. And that led me down the path of really understanding that what I was doing, engineering, was not for me. So started to gather skills, work with mentors, read books, to ultimately quit my job in 2018. And I traveled to Costa Rica. I traveled all through Europe, just really proving to myself that I could do something out of the ordinary, out of the norm, that my family has never done. And then did that for 2 months, came back and just really hit the grind to build the business that I now have. Started as a personal trainer. So I was working in 2 gyms, working at a restaurant as well to cover bills, trying to build the online thing on the side. And then COVID happened. So everything shut down. I was forced to either collect unemployment or create the dream life that I always wanted. And so I made the choice to create the dream life. And that was 4.5 years ago. I've continually evolved the business. It started with fitness. It got into more holistic health, meditation, journaling stuff. And it just continually evolved as I've seen a need for more specificity and more detail in the approach, because I've just been obsessed with getting the best results possible. And how I work now, I feel like I've gotten pretty good at figuring out what people need. And it's through using blood work, precision diagnostics, subjective biofeedback screening, that really just eliminates all the guesswork. So the person only has to worry about execution. And so wrapping that up and like connecting that into why I do what I do, because in that period when I was just not enjoying my life, I was 100% depressed, like not clinical depressed, but I definitely was. I was lonely. I was living in a 1 bedroom apartment. I was completely isolated, kind of disconnected from my friends, um, going days without having a conversation with anyone. So just really in the depths of despair. And so I didn't test myself for testosterone, but I 100% had literally every symptom that you can think about. I had that. And so today I know how dark and despairful, if that's even a word, can be. And I know how health and how hormone optimization can get you out of that, because that's what I lived. I really started to get into more of, like, fitness got me so far, but I had to rewire that and really look into health first, holistic health, looking at all aspects of my life. And then from that foundation, I was really able to just like completely transform myself, transform my life. And now I feel like I'm really connected to my purpose and I'm doing what I'm here to do.
Mm. Well, I love that, man. Thank you for sharing. It's a story that's similar that I've heard from many men, and the isolation and feeling disconnected, depressed, and of course this happens for lots of different reasons. As somebody who also found out that I have pretty low testosterone, it really, when I found that out and I started reading the symptoms, was eye-opening for me and made me kind of run down that rabbit hole, which is ultimately how I found you, which ultimately is why we're here today. But what I've been learning is a lot of men struggle with this, and a lot of men who maybe have some symptoms that maybe don't realize, but after this episode, we'll probably be able to have more clarity on what this may be. And so I'm really looking forward to getting into this stuff with you. So thanks for sharing, brother. Now let's jump into it. So what is going on with testosterone today in men? And you said a word when we were chatting before, and it was the mandemic. And I love that, man. So can you unpack, like, what is the deal? What are we hearing about here? Walk us through it.
Yeah. So testosterone has been decreasing roughly like 1% per year for decades. And so if you think about it, if that continues, we eventually get to zero. So it's definitely a big problem that's going on. More and more people are experiencing low testosterone. I think it's around like 40% of men now have low testosterone. And then it's getting into the young male age bracket, which is like 15 to 39. They're even getting, I think that's like up to 20% now. So it's just like this continual rise of lower testosterone, this experience that I was explaining about loneliness, a lack of purpose, lack of drive, motivation, libido is super low. And then what also comes with that is fertility as well. Sperm count decreased by 59% in 40 years, which is, again, we're trending towards zero, which, like, if you want to, maybe this isn't even dramatic, but if we play that out over 40 more years, does that take us to zero? Are we infertile as a race? Does the human species no longer exist? That's like probably worst case scenario. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm hopeful that, the work that I do will have some impact, and then just the world will start to correct itself, because we'll see that this is a major problem and things will start to be done to reverse this.
Well, yeah, man, it's interesting. So, I mean, I've heard a lot about this over the past maybe year or so, and I don't know if it was like the algorithms of the universe just sending things to my feed or what, but yeah, man, it's not just from you. It's been from tons and tons of people, and there's lots of different causes I've heard. So from your perspective, what are some of the causes of low testosterone? Because I've heard a bunch of different things, but anybody who's suspect of it, what might they be considering today?
Yeah, so obviously the main one that we're dealing with in America is obesity, being overweight. It's 74% of Americans, adults, are either overweight or obese. That's pretty insane. So if you connect that in, you're just going to have a much unhealthier environment, and therefore your hormones are going to be hindered. It'll increase estrogen levels. So when you have more fat tissue on you, it increases something called aromatase, which converts testosterone into estrogen. So you essentially have less testosterone to work with. That's just being overweight, which is a major problem. Endocrine disruptors, chemicals, so like microplastics is big, phthalates, things like cologne, fragrance, all these chemicals, cleaning products, all this stuff that is relatively new to us and how we evolved, but it's just creating this chemical cascade within our bodies that's shutting down our endocrine system and stopping us from producing as much testosterone as we can. Those are really two main ones. We can get into sleep. People are stressed. I think as stressed as we've ever been, just because of the climate, because of society, because of all the expectations. Stress is at an all-time high, which increases cortisol, which can impact production of testosterone. Sleep as well. If people are more stressed, maybe they're not sleeping as well. And so this is also going to have a negative effect on total testosterone, free testosterone, all of your beneficial hormones. Even one night of bad sleep can make you insulin resistant. So like sleep is an extremely important part for not only testosterone, but a lot of other hormones. Going further, like connecting back into the lack of health. I think they're overfed, but they're undernourished. So we're getting a lot of calories, but we're not getting many micronutrients. So
Mm.
I'm assuming, and I see this on blood work a lot, people are vitamin D deficient. That's a massive one. Maybe like the past 100 bloods that I've looked through, maybe like 90 of them have been vitamin D deficient. Um, so that's definitely a big problem, which has massive impacts on testosterone. And this, you don't really get vitamin D from food, you get it from sun. So people are inside a lot. They're not, they're working at a cubicle, they're working at their desk. The only time they're outside is maybe walking from their car to the office and then back. And the rest of their time is spent inside. So,
Mm.
and then also clothed. So they're not getting enough vitamin D, which is drastically impacting their health. And then also their hormones. Zinc as well is really important. Yeah, it's just the quality of the diet is very poor, and therefore the nutrients that they're getting that are directly impacting hormone and testosterone levels are just not there.
Mm.
I'll start with those.
Awesome, man. Well, okay. I mean, you threw out some words, so we're gonna pull some of these off the top shelf so that the average man can understand what you're talking about. So you talked about sleep, which I think we can all understand.
Mhm.
Being overweight with excessive fats issue, high levels of stress. Having a quality diet with micronutrients, vitamin D, sunlight. That all makes sense. You mentioned microplastics and cologne. Now, what are microplastics, and how can we get them out of our life?
Yeah. So there's two ways that I look at microplastics. Well, essentially, first they're what they sound like. They're plastics, but they're very small. So they can get into your bloodstream. They can get in to your body through like skin, through consumption. I remember seeing statistics about, I don't know the time frame, but essentially like maybe it's a year. You have like, oh, I'm gonna butcher this, but they compare the amount of microplastics you eat compared to like the amount of credit cards like
Wow.
eating. So like maybe you have a credit card of plastic in a year, probably more than that. So that's just kind of crazy to think about. And then you think about, well, plastics, they're endocrine disruptors. So essentially they get into the system and they slow or shut down the normal feedback loop that we would have. And also how I look at them, the two best ways to get them out of your life. Number one is to just avoid them in the first place. It's really hard to do that, but this is where small actions start to compound. So a big one I see in like bodybuilding fitness communities is the plastic Tupperware. You meal prep, you put your hot food into the plastic container, and heat and plastic don't mix. So if you're putting like a hot chicken breast into a plastic container, some of that plastic is going to leach into the chicken and then you're eating it. Granted, like this is very small amounts, but it has compounding impacts. So that's a big one. Avoiding it. Definitely like some people still do this. They take the plastic and then they put it in the microwave and then they have the food in there and then that's leaching even more. So avoiding plastic. A big source of this as well is clothing. So polyester clothing, very popular these days. Like if you wear Lululemon, any kind of athletic wear like that, the majority of it's going to be polyester, which is essentially plastic. You hear they try and spin it and it's like made with 100% recycled plastics. You're like, oh, that's great. It's good for the it's good for the world. But it's really bad for your health because it's literally just plastic. I saw a video maybe a month back of someone burning a Lululemon shirt and it turns into just like goop. And I'm like, that doesn't seem right to me. So that, you think about our skin, it's our largest organ. if we have plastic continually rubbing on it, we're working out in it, we're sweating in it, some of that microplastic is leaching into our body. So those are sources about how that's like how it gets into our body. Now, what do you do about it? We talked about avoiding it. Now, more so getting into detoxing it. And this one's pretty simple for me. Sauna is going to be amazing. One of our main detox pathways is through sweat. So getting into a sauna, making sure you're sweating is going to free up some of the toxins within your body and eliminate it. But even before that, and this connects into the micronutrient rich diet, the liver is one of the main things that helps us detox. And there's phases of liver detox. So one of the best things you can do to support that is essentially just have a nutrient rich diet. There's tons of different nutrients that are required for the liver to detox properly. And so just ensuring that that is on point, your liver is at a good state. You don't have a fatty liver, you don't have a sluggish liver, anything like that. You do a blood test, look on your liver enzymes. If they're high or low, that'll give you insight, making sure that those are in the optimal range. And then implementing sauna, 2 to 3 times a week, 20 to 30 minutes, you're doing pretty good there. That would be my protocol to get rid of the microplastics.
Hey, I promise we're going to get back to this episode, but I just wanted to take a few seconds to tell you about a free marriage course that I'm offering, no charge, and it's called Remodel Your Marriage. And it's a 4-step blueprint to understanding your wife, keeping your cool, and getting the fire back in your marriage. And in this course, we're going to dig into the 4 foundations that every successful couple understands well. And that's number 1, how to love each other well. Number 2, how to feel and how to communicate how you feel, how to communicate through conflict. Number 3 is how to fight fair and how to fight well. And then number 4 is how to have fun and to break out of that routine of becoming just really great roommates. And so if you're watching this and maybe you would say that your marriage is feeling a little stale, maybe needs a little remodeling or refreshing, all you need to do is head to dadnationco.com/remodel for that free course for you, my friend. I put a lot of time and energy into it, and I believe that it can help you transform your marriage. I believe in the marriage model. I believe in you and your marriage, my friend. All right, let's get back to the episode. Tell me about this. I think we were talking about this before, but I saw some article about they did like a test on a bunch of scrotums and found like a bunch of like what was that about?
Yeah, they did a study. I think it was they did it on dogs and then also I think a few humans. And what they found was microplastics in literally every testicle that they analyzed. So it was like cadavers. So they cut them open and then analyzed them and found microplastics in literally everything. And they're starting to see microplastics in embryonic fluid. So babies, as they're being created, but getting exposed to microplastics. So it's just really unanimous. It's all over the place. And
Wow.
so this is where these little things that you can do to avoid it really start to compound and improve your health.
Crazy. Dude, that's wild. Yeah, when I saw the scrotum thing, I was like, okay, I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't want plastic in my scrotum. Okay. Okay, last question about this. You mentioned cologne, and okay, I love a good cologne. There's nothing more that I love than smelling really great. So this broke my heart a little bit, but could you unpack that quickly for us?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look into colognes, and like really what the ingredients are, like what are they? It's essentially just like a mix of different chemicals to get the right scent. And something I learned about a long time ago was the word fragrance. So if you look at that like on soaps, on shampoos, that can literally mean anything. It's kind of like a protected term where fragrance can be literally 1,000 different chemicals mixed together to create that specific scent. You don't know what the hell you're getting, but they can call it fragrance because it's kind of a loophole that they can get away with to just dump chemicals in, which, maybe not nefarious, but like to get this perfect scent, they need to add in all these chemicals. And these are endocrine disrupting chemicals likely that if you're spraying on your body, they're getting in through the skin, they're getting into your bloodstream, and then they're disrupting the hormonal production, similar in a way to microplastics.
So would you advise that people just don't wear cologne or what? What do you?
Yeah, like I don't wear cologne. There's definitely going to be, a better and worse. So like probably the worst is your typical, the ones that are on commercials. They probably are not very health conscious. They're just literally like, how can we make this smell the best? It doesn't matter what we put in it. Let's just make it smell good. Down to like more natural fragrances. So I'm sure you could find a cologne that's made from like essential oils that is going to be more natural and not as impactful on your hormonal system.
All right. All right. Okay.
There's hope. There's hope.
Dude, I'm gonna look this up. I'm gonna find myself some good natural cologne that's based on essential oils.
Mhm.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about signs and symptoms of low T. Like how, because there's going to be a lot of guys listening. A lot of the guys listening to the show are like 25 to 55, young
Mhm.
dads, middle-aged dads. And what are some symptoms that they can look for?
Yeah. So there's a whole host of them. The main ones being low energy. So just feeling fatigued. I hear complaints about like it's just, life is just harder to live with lower energy, and just like it's more of a struggle, it's more of a grind. That's a big one. Low drive and motivation as well, like not feeling like you have that edge, that you have the drive to go do things. Because real quick, dopamine and testosterone are heavily correlated.
Mm,
So if you have low T, dopamine might not be working as effectively.
mm,
Libido is a big one that I hear as well. Just like having a low sex drive, not interested in sex, not interested in any of that, which is weird. Like for men, we're stereotyped as that's all we want.
mm-hmm.
So then if you have low testosterone, not having that then can start to get in your mind like, damn, what's wrong with me? I'm supposed to be a man. I'm being told that all this stuff is like, I need to have this massive libido and that's all I need to want. I don't have that. What's wrong with me? Those are main ones. Lack of building muscle. Like if you find yourself in the gym just struggling, workouts aren't as good, you've possibly even lost muscle despite working out, not able to recover at all. Um, all of these just like really important factors, and to put them all into a box, it's just like, testosterone is what makes a man a man. So just feeling less like a man.
Hmm. Yeah, dude, I can resonate. I resonate with that for sure. I mean, there were some things that I was struggling with that caused me to kind of ask some of those questions. Low libido was one. I remember the first time I was like starting to feel that. I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute, like
Mm-hmm.
what's wrong with me here? Like, yeah, I'm supposed to be wanting sex. I'm supposed to be, all those different things, and I too. So there was that, and then the second thing was. Um, just like an overall, I felt like I was living in a fog. Like I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have clarity, I didn't have energy. And it was just, man, life felt like it required more hustle to just get through every day. And I'm like an energetic dude full of like vitality, life. And yeah, man. So I can attest the
Mm-hmm.
things he says are true. Cool, man. Well, that's great information. So let's talk a little bit about levels, because here's another thing I experienced is I went to my doctor and they said, you're fine. You're within
Mm.
the quote unquote normal range for men. So you're good. There is no need for you to get help. And I live in Canada, so the medical system is public, so it's a little bit different. Sometimes you really have to advocate to get what you want. And so it actually had to do some convincing to my doctor and be like, no, 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 no. I really need this because I think that this is not normal. And then I ended up going to another doctor who specialized in hormonal health. And he said, Mitch, you have the testosterone levels of a 75-year-old man. Like
Mm.
you're like in the basement here. And he's like, you should be like close to your peak. And so it was really interesting to me that two medical professionals had two entirely different opinions. And that was alarming to me, number one. Number two, I think just filled with like a righteous anger that I had to advocate so much to get the help that I was suspicious that I needed. So talk to us a little bit about, well, like what are optimal levels, what are low levels, and actually low and optimal versus what, the healthcare system says.
Yeah. I hear this a lot, and this like really just upsets me because, you know, gaslighting is a really popular word these days, and literally doctors are sometimes the best gaslighters when
Mm,
men come to them with these issues. The ranges that the conventional system uses, they vary depending on lab, but they can be as low as 250 all the way up to like, 900, 1,000. But what really, upsets me is someone can be like 251 and experiencing all the symptoms that we've talked about, and further, like maybe more depression, anxiety, brain fog, the mental aspect of things. But they're 251, so the doctor's like, "Oh, you're in the range, bro. You're good. Like you're normal." But in reality, normal is bullshit. Normal is to them just the absence of a major disease. Like their ranges are, if you're one inside the range, you're good. If you're outside the range, then it's almost too late and you're in disease state. So I just think it's a problem. And that's also why I don't use the conventional ranges and why I use more optimal ranges that are tiered. So you can have, like I said, the conventional is just like you're either healthy or you're not. But the optimal, you're either optimal, you can think of it like green, orange, yellow, red. So like there's tiers in it. So you're like, you're optimal, you're good, you're okay. You might want to check things out. It's tiered so we can see where you're at and then get you the support that you need. In terms of like actual levels, like I said, 250 to 900 or 1,000 is going to be conventional. My ranges, I'm pretty strict, I guess. Anything below 700 is considered a little low to me. I want it to be at over 700. And obviously, like, this depends on the person's age, their health, all these things. But mostly the men that come to me, anywhere from even 20 all the way up to 65. So the 65-year-olds below 700 might be fine. It's all about how do they feel, how do they function, and that type of stuff. So it's merging those two together. It's not just the number. Like if you're 675, but you feel like you feeling really good, that might be fine for you. I'd also question, is it possible if we get it a little bit higher, do you feel even better? And I think this is a big thing with men as well. We like normalize levels of suboptimal health because, we're just trying to get through. We're just trying to grind, support for our families, support for the people around us, putting ourselves last. You kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. Sometimes people are their poor health is so normalized that they can't even see what life would be like if their hormones were in a much better spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I totally agree. In my experience, and this is interesting. I know some guys are probably going to be listening, and be like, "Oh, well, I lift weights, and I've got, I'm not overweight, so I'm active, so I might have some symptoms, but I'm sure I have high testosterone." Well, at the time I got tested, I was weight training 5 days a week. I was maybe 11% body fat at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting about 8 hours of sleep. I was managing my stress, and so just to, I think, affirm what you're saying, that was my situation, and I think that's why the doctor said to me, "Well, you're doing everything you're supposed to do. So if this is the case and this is what you're doing, and you're low testosterone, well, you're still normal, right?" But there was just so much more to it than just that, right? So if you're listening, that was my situation. And so hopefully that gives you a little bit of encouragement to get tested if you feel like, suspect that you might have low testosterone. So let's talk a little bit. Oh, did you have anything, something else?
Yeah, no, I have more to add on that.
Yeah, do it.
Like you can be doing everything like you were talking about. You're doing all the foundational things right, but there's these things that I call health handbrakes, where you might not essentially know that it's going on without looking under the hood, doing a functional blood work analysis. And this is what I see all the time is, you get your bloods and we start to see these nutrient deficiencies. Like you might think like your diet is clean, you're eating fine, but we look under the hood and we see that you're deficient in zinc, vitamin D, possibly selenium. And then you're wondering like, oh, like I was doing everything, but still there were gaps to fill. That's from a nutrient standpoint, but also like there could be liver issues, there could be thyroid issues, there could be blood sugar issues that you're maybe just not aware of, that downstream are creating a lower environment or a harder environment for testosterone to thrive. And so that's how I work. That's the approach that I take. It's not just like, okay, let's only test your testosterone and see what that is. No, it's looking at the whole picture, because hormones are pretty downstream from a lot of the other things. And I work in this pyramid of dysfunction. So we address the lower levels, working all the way up to hormones. So we're eliminating all of your health handbrakes so that by the time that's handled, your testosterone is in much better place. And then we can also support that directly as well. So I
That
think that's what a lot of people miss is they see they might have low testosterone and they want to address that directly without looking at the underlying dysfunction that is causing it. Looking at the root cause, you address the root cause, and then hormones get better.
love it. Talk to me about test boost pills. The over the counter Popeyes, gonna get some test boost. Does that stuff
Yeah.
actually work? Is that just a bunch of BS? Tell us about it.
Yeah, definitely. I make a lot of posts about this stuff, just ripping into T boosters. But it's both, man. Like some of them do work, some of them don't. Supplements are highly unregulated, so you can get some pretty bad products out there. Let's go into that first. So the ones that don't work, two reasons why. One, it's just a product. They might have all the catchphrases and products that are been proven to work. Like a lot of them include Tomcat Ali, but if the dosage is like 50 milligrams, if the dosage is too low, if it's not standardized to the right active ingredient, it's not going to have the effect that you want. Same thing with, I see this a lot, proprietary blends. This other one that I was looking at, it was 350 milligrams of the platinum proprietary blend. But some of the products in there, in order to have testosterone boosting effects, needed to be at much higher dosages. So like they're putting in this stuff to say that it's in there, but without like it's not going to have any effect because at that dosage it doesn't do anything. So that's a major problem that I see. Another thing though is like some might work. Let's say the product's really good. They don't have proprietary blends. They have good dosages of the things that actually work, but it still doesn't work for you. Why is that? And this goes back to what I just said is that instead of just looking at testosterone, let's look at why, like what's the root cause of your testosterone being low?
Mm.
And, there's a lot of things that I went through. If you're deficient in zinc, if you're deficient in vitamin D, if you're deficient in selenium, all these things are going to have an impact on testosterone. And then also just health in general. If you have a fatty liver, if you are metabolically unhealthy, if your SHBG is high, which lowers free testosterone, which that's a whole other can of worms that we can get into. Yeah. So it's essentially like it might not work because you don't need what it has. And for Tomcat LE, like if your stress management is fine, then maybe you don't need Tomcat. Maybe you need something else.
To me, it kind of feels like a bit of a band-aid. Like, so for example, if you're, zinc deficient, deficient in magnesium and some of these other things, and you're just taking, a test booster and you aren't checking all those, as you said, health handbrakes, then are you really fixing the problem? Or are you just kind of boosting something else where something else needs attention? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. It's a band-aid. It's not root cause focus. It's just like, let's slap this on here. Let's try this, see if it works. It's guessing. And more often than not, when you're guessing with this stuff, you're not going to get the results that you want.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about TRT. I'd love to hear what you think about this because when I started down this journey, a lot of people said to me, "Oh man, just start taking testosterone replacement therapy." I mean, why not? Just inject, super easy, subcutaneous, give her. You'll get all the tests you want. And I wasn't interested in it because of muscle development or like bodybuilding. I was legit just wanted my libido back. I was so close, dude. So close to taking it until I met this naturopath. And he said, please don't take it. Let me work with you to see if we can boost this naturally. So could you tell us, number one, what is TRT? And number two, why is it that we should avoid it if you think we should? Or maybe you don't think we should. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so TRT, it stands for testosterone replacement therapy. It's literally testosterone and you're just injecting it. So what it essentially does is it shuts down your body's natural production because there's a negative feedback loop within the body that's just natural that keeps your testosterone within a good range. So if you're injecting it, your body sees that, oh, we have testosterone, we can shut down the signals that tell our body to naturally produce testosterone. So my opinion on TRT is it's a stop loss. It's a last resort. And I believe that it shouldn't be, you go to the doctor and they tell you have low testosterone. It should not be the first thing that you do. Cause like we've talked about, if you address health handbrakes, if you address nutrient deficiencies, that might fix the problem. And you're really just like, it was that simple. And then you don't have to go on TRT for the rest of your life because it is a rest of your life thing. You can come off it if you want, but it can be tough. It can be grueling. And it depends on how long you've been doing it. Like if you've been taking it for 5 years, your body is pretty aware that it's continually getting exogenous testosterone. So it's completely shut down. Now, there are things you can do to help assist that come back online. And I don't think it's ever too late, but it might make it more challenging. I think it's over relied on. I think it's really a Band-Aid, like we've talked about. You're not addressing the actual root cause, and people hop on it way too quick. And I've been doing this a lot recently, just like getting a pulse on what people are doing in these like testosterone TRT Facebook groups. And there's a lot of people out there in the same situation. They like went to the doctor, they have low T, and everyone's like, yeah, dude, just hop on TRT. There's literally no drawbacks. And I'm there just like, damn, like, there definitely are. I'm just asking them like, hey, have you addressed like your nutrition? Are you overweight? How's your sleep? How's your stress? And a lot of them are like, they're all bad. And I'm like, bro, address that and you're going to feel way better. But it's almost like it's looked at as a cheat code. They're like, oh, I'm just like not motivated to work out and stuff. So maybe if I start TRT, I'll feel better and then I'll work out, which I can have, like, I have sympathy for that. I just think it's overprescribed. And then what I'm also seeing is a lot of people posting in these groups. Granted, like it's probably skewed to people posting in groups are the ones who need support, but I'm seeing a lot of negative stuff about like, they started to feel good and then now it's 2-3 weeks later and they're just like not feeling good. They're feeling the same as they were before. So I think there's a lot of like people just aren't doing it right. They're either taking too much. And this is a big problem that I see a lot, is they're getting injections every 2 weeks. But by the time it comes down to get another injection, the half-life is, what they've injected is completely gone. So they're just like up and down and up and down and up and down. And if things about hormones, if they're just up and down, you're going to feel crazy. You're not going to feel good. And there's an aspect of, maybe negligence on the provider's part of like, you have to know the product that you're giving people and its effect if you're pushing the dosage out that far. So that's more in like if people are actually on TRT, there's a lot of problems that come with that, just within that whole world that you have to be careful of if you do go on it. And then there's fertility aspects as well. There's things you can do to mitigate this. But there's going to be fertility aspects. If you want to have children in the future, it might be a little bit more challenging if you go on TRT, because there's this negative feedback loop again, that it's going to shut down some of that production. And then overall, the solution to a lot of these problems, which I thought was interesting, and in these groups is promoted, is more medication. So you're taking testosterone replacement therapy because of, you're not feeling great, but then the effects of that are maybe raising your estrogen. So you have to take medication to lower your estrogen. There's a lot of guys talking about other blood markers like their hematocrit or their hemoglobin being really high, and therefore they have to give blood or they have to take a medication that lowers that. And it's like, that just isn't attractive to me. I would rather go the natural route, use what I can with like lifestyle, targeted supplementation, training, all these things that I do first. And then if that doesn't work, then maybe that's a conversation that you can have. But I just think it's hopped on way too early. And yeah, there's so much more you can do that people just aren't doing.
I completely agree. Everything that I've read, everything that I've personally experienced myself, I think it totally makes sense. What might be a scenario, just out of curiosity, where you would say TRT is the best option? Or is there a scenario? Hey, we're going to get back to the episode, but while I have you here, I wanted to ask you, would you consider helping a brother who's struggling in his life right now? Maybe it's a guy searching the internet to help save his marriage, his health, or his family. Maybe it's a man that's just behind you on this journey. And we know, statistically speaking, there are thousands of men doing this. And we know that there are probably men in your social circles that are struggling with some of these very same things. If you'd be willing to help, this is how you can help. And I promise it'll take less than 60 seconds. If you've gotten any value from this podcast so far, would you be willing to give us an honest review and subscribe to our channel, whatever channel you're listening on? If you want to take this to the next level, would you consider sending this link to a friend of yours who you know would benefit from listening to this show? Now, why would you do that? Because the more men that hear this content, the more marriages we can save, the more fathers we can help step up, and the more lives that we can change forever. This isn't just for the men. This is for the wives, the children, and the generations to come. So I want to say thank you so much for doing your part to help other men find the support that they need. Now let's get back to it.
Yeah, I think it's more the emergency situations. So like I always think about if someone's like on the brink of destruction, like suicidal thoughts, like ideation, like they're ready to go and they know that they have low testosterone, that might be a scenario where you're like, well, addressing this naturally might take some time. Like with anything that is worth it, it takes a little bit of time. So that could be a stop loss. It can be a last resort of like, this guy, who knows what's going to happen in a month. Let's like give him the support he needs to get him to a much better place. And then, circle back on a month. Is he feeling better? If so, get things to stabilize. And then depending on the person's preference, like it's always about the person and what they want and what they can, what they feel good with. If that person would want to continue, then that's cool. They just have to be aware of the risks. But if not, then they could start to wean off if they want. And then weaning off, you just support all the natural ways as they come off.
Gotcha. Now, when we talk about going the natural route, which I think you're saying is the optimal route, like how much can you actually improve your testosterone levels? Like realistically, can you give us some percentages or like in your experience working with clients and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, it's dependent on the person, depends on how low they are. So if you're at like 600, doubling it is going to be a little bit harder. But if you're at 100, doubling it can be pretty easy. So it's all like case dependent. Yeah, if you're at 100, I don't see any way or any reason why not to be able to get up to 700 into the optimal range. So that's like a 700% increase, right? If my math is correct. So for that person, if it's really low, then yeah, I think the upside is tremendous. If it is a little bit more normal in the middle range, getting that 700% is going to be pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I know when I weighed in, I think I came in at like 255 or something like that. And I was like, and that was why they said I was normal, because the lowest, I believe the indicator
was 250.
The indicator was 249, I guess would be low. And then I was 255. So they were like, yeah, you're fine. I'm like, what?
Just gaslighting you right in your face. No, you're fine, bro. It's all in your head.
Cool, man. Well, hey, thank you so much for this conversation, Mark. I appreciate it, brother. And I know there's just going to be a ton of guys who are going to be listening to this. That I mean, even if they don't have low T, this is great information for as they age, or maybe this, maybe some of the guys listening to this are a little overweight, or not managing their stress well, and some of these things. And I know you've shone a light into a lot of people's lives and given them some real great things to consider. So thank you for your time, man. The last question I want to ask just before we wrap up here is, like, where can we find you? I know guys are going to be looking for your stuff after this, and how can we support you? How can you help us as well? What does that look like?
Yeah, so easiest place and where I post a lot of my stuff is Instagram. So I'm sure it'll be in the show notes. It's Mark Holman Health. That's where I post most of my stuff. And yeah, what I do that I've alluded to essentially is everyone I work with gets a comprehensive blood panel to understand how that foundational health is. And then from that, overlay precision diagnostics, subjective biofeedback screening to really just get a really clear picture of everything that's going on with them. and then craft a specific protocol for that individual that's going to, increase their testosterone if that's what they need to focus on. That's going to just get them closer towards optimal health. We're pulling up the health handbrakes or putting down the health handbrakes so that they can get back to their life, essentially. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of fathers out there, if they're experiencing these things, like not able to be as present with their family, not able to be as not satisfying their wives as much as they maybe used to, which are massive things that I know as a man, super important. And just to get them back to a place where they can do that, where they can show up for their family how they want to, and really just become the man that they're really meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. And I think in my experience, I talk with a lot of men, it's like the fire's out of their eyes. They just look and feel lifeless. And for nothing else, man, just to get some of that vitality and energy back. And I mean, that's how we were designed. I believe that's how we were designed to live. And and we ought to live that way. Well, listen, Mark, thanks so much for joining us today. And I would love to unpack even more stuff, but maybe we'll have to have you on for round 2 at some point, and dig into a little bit more of these things. But thank you so much for your time, brother. Appreciate it. It's great having you on the show today.
Yeah, definitely. We can run it back. And then real quick, if anyone from this podcast follows me or whatever, just message me Dad Nation. And if you have blood work, I'll analyze it 100% for free and just share what I see and what you can work on.
Killer. Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll catch up soon. Wow, what an incredible episode. Listen, if you are watching on YouTube today, I want to hear from you, okay? Leave it in the comments below. What was the big takeaway for you? What was that big aha moment? And let's start the conversation. If you've listened to this episode and you've decided that you want help today, if you need coaching, if you need some resources, feel free to please reach out to me. My email is mitchell@dadnationco.com. My website is dadnationco.com. You can hit me up on Instagram @dadnationco. And I've got a ton of resources for you. I'm here to help you, support you in any way I can, and to serve you in a powerful way. So check those links. I'll have them posted below. But other than that, listen, I'm here for you. I'm in your corner. Have an incredible week. We'll catch up soon.